Hello, boys and girls. I hope you're doing well, and I'm happy that you're here listening to a new movie recording for some more artwork. Today, I'm going to talk about Zentangle, and I'm pretty sure you might have heard about Zentangle because it's been around for a while. But it's basically kind of like doodling, but with really cool patterns. So, Zentangle is basically you're filling in shapes with patterns, and those patterns in Zentangle are called tangles. And then whenever you make a shape, you're basically throwing a string, which is a line. So those are terms that you would use when talking about Zentangle. So when I first learned about Zentangle, I was offered a small square of paper, and we made strings to separate the paper into different areas that we would be filled with different patterns, and we only used a Sharpie. Now each tangle has a name, so I learned about different tangles, and then you can fill, you can make a different shape and fill these with all these tangles. So it's kind of like a practice sheet. Then you can also choose to add color. So in this case, you can add color with pencils or with markers, but it has to be, like really small if you have small areas like these. I'm also going to share from a really cool book. So this book here is called Zentangle for Kids, and this is where I got all this different handouts that I'm going to share with you, and they're really, really cool. And the book has many more. So if you like the Zentangle, I recommend that you might look for the book. So for instance, if you wanted to, you would start with a shape. So in this case, let's say that I start with the shape of a bird. And then I will fill in with different tangles and then decide to color it or not. You can always leave it just black and white. You can leave it without a background. So this is where you come in and you decide how to, how to make your composition. Here's a different example, for instance, a little seahorse. And here are tangles on the side. And you could see, an option for creating your seahorse or zentangling your seahorse. And then again, you can choose to just do it black and white. So my daughter Sophie decided that she wanted to give it a try while I was working on the project. And she came up with this cute little seahorse. And she decided just to leave it black and white. And it looks really good. It's just paper and a Sharpie. Now I'd like to share a few tangles. So whenever you work on your creation, you can refer to these, and they have step-by-step on how to create your tangles. And this is really, really helpful. And basically, it's kind of creating your own library of patterns so that when you're ready, you can look at them and decide which one you want to use. And some of these I will be using in my design. A lot of these are from, the birds, are used in the birds and in the seahorse, and they all have names. So this one is called veils. The next one is called tipple, and I will be using this one in my seashell. And here's another one called printemps, which actually means spring in French, and I will be using printemps. And then the last one of my favorites, is called coral seeds, and I will be using that one as well in my seashell. So I'm going to get started, and I hope you have fun. All right, I am going to start by practicing, and I'd love for you to practice a little bit before we start zentangling our seashell. So I'm going to make a square like this and just put a line, actually a dot in each corner, and I'm going to draw a line that connects these two and a line that connects these two, and then kind of a frame, and that will give us just a couple of spaces to kind of practice some tangles. So the first one that I showed you a while ago was called tipple. So tipple is basically some circles of different sizes bunched together. So here is, you're gonna fill your space. So again, each tangle has a name, and this one is called tipple. And then if you like, in between the spaces here, you can fill it up with black so that your circles kind of stand out a little bit more. This will be just a quick example. Another one was called printemps. So these are just swirls, and again, you want to make sure that they touch each other. Some will be bigger than others, and that's what makes it interesting. So if you have a small space, you can squeeze a little one here. So this one is printemps. Now another thing is, you can also just make up your own tangles, so they don't have to be, you know, from a book. You can experiment with repeating patterns and how they would look, you know, when you put them all together. So make sure just to be consistent, which means just watch your lines, make sure it repeats the same thing, will repeat again and again. And then you're actually creating your own patterns. You can even just make a little library of different patterns on a sheet of paper like we're doing right now. So this is your basic library of 4 tangles. So now I'm going to go ahead and start with my seashell drawing. So I'm going to take a fresh piece of paper. This is just drawing paper, and if you'd like to start with pencil, you may. I'm just going to go ahead with Sharpie, and I'm going to make a really beautiful spiral shape. So this is a nautilus, beautiful nautilus seashell. So here's my first really nice line. So make sure it's very well drawn, and I'm going to even just go over it again, because this one is going to be a thicker line than the other lines that will go inside my patterns. So I'm going to go again, just make sure it's nice and thick. And again, you know, close your shapes and make really beautiful lines. This is about craftsmanship. It's not about being first in art. It's about taking your time and enjoying the process, enjoying each line that you make. And there are no mistakes in art. So now is my large shape. Now I'm going to divide in other shapes that will have, each one of these shapes will have a different tangle. So make sure that they're not too small. And again, these ones, do you see how I'm keeping the curve? So seashells are curved, and I want to maintain the illusion as I go around. And maybe one more. Actually, maybe I'll leave, no, one more. This is where you decide how many sections. And again, I'm going to go over these lines, they will be part of the different sections. When I'm done with my big lines, I am going to switch to a small Sharpie, a fine point, extra fine point Sharpie, and I'm going to start making my tangles. So for instance, this one here, I'm going to start and I'm going to draw 2 lines and more lines, and I will continue until I fill this whole space with the same tangle, and then the next one will have maybe a different one, and so on. So I will see you in just a little bit. So once my main element is finished with all my different patterns, I can decide to leave it like this by itself, or I can add some details. So I would like to add some to my Nautilus as if it was actually alive and swimming, and maybe I can add some seaweed, some fish in the background. So again, this is, you know, your composition. This is where you decide what you want to add. If you wanted to leave it just like that, just simple. Sometimes simple is best because it's already really busy with all the different patterns that we have. So it's up to you. I'm going to add a couple things as if he was or she was or it was swimming, and then maybe some, these are seaweed from the bottom of the ocean, and he's just going through at the bottom of the sea. And maybe I'll have a fish in here. So just simple shapes. Here's my happy fish. And again, I could add some patterns in here as well. So I'm going to switch to my smaller Sharpie and add a few patterns. So now that all my patterns are finished, I'm going to start coloring my seashell using these pencils. These are watercolor pencils, but you can use any pencils that you have. So I'm going to start with the seashell, the seaweed, my fish, and then the background I will add watercolor later. So let me get started. Alrighty, boys and girls, I am done with coloring with my watercolor pencils, and now I'm going to use pan watercolors to paint the background because it's a much larger area. So I'm going to use my, this is kind of a medium brush, And even though I am not using watercolor paper, I'm gonna go around and apply just a small amount of water everywhere around my seashell. And this will just buy me some time, and I'm gonna work in sections if I can. Let's see, I'm gonna start right here, and always work from light to dark. So I'm gonna use my lightest blue right here as a start. I'm gonna go around, and I hold the seashell like this just because the paper sometimes kind of buckles up. So I'm just gonna go all the way around, like this, around, and I will continue painting, and I will see you in just a little bit.